It's important to remember that you're not just a mother, but you're also a unique individual with your own preferences. Like, for instance, when a friend stayed over, you wanted to pick out the color of the couch in your living room. It's not about what other people think is good or bad. It's about finding a balance in a relationship. These little things can make a big difference, especially for those who aren't able to leave an abusive marriage. They help us remember that life can be full of wonder and possibilities. Even if you're not someone who's been in an abusive marriage, there are still so many things that can be taken away from it. Like, you might feel like you're not getting the attention you deserve, or you might feel like you're not going to have anyone else in your life. But, even if you're separated and have a child, you still have the right to be married. I think it's important to remember that there are a lot of issues with marriage, and it can make women feel like they can't be happy on their own. I've heard so many women say that they're really relieved when a separation happens, and that's exactly what happened to me. I've noticed that when people talk about getting divorced, they often mention how it can feel like you're left alone, like you'll never find love again. But I think deep down, we all know that's not the whole story. I mean, think about it. Even though weddings can be overwhelming and sometimes even abusive, most of us still want to get married. I know I did. I got divorced from my first husband, and now I'm separated from my second. But I realized that I could have separated 5 years earlier, and I didn't because of all the stigma around divorce. It's like we think that when you take off your wedding ring, you're also taking away your chance at love. People might even think I'm not married, but I'm with a better man. That's okay, right? Let's stay together, stay with the father of our son. If you deconstruct this in the first separation, it's like a relief. When you leave, you feel like, my God, the world is not. I know some of you are thinking, well, if she's not married, how can she be so confident? But trust me, there's a special someone out there who's the perfect match for her. She's been through a lot, and she's learned a lot from her past relationships. She's come a long way, and she's ready to settle down with someone special. Recently, we talked about how we used to live in a very macho and logical way, and it was all about the man being the breadwinner. But now things have changed, and women are taking charge of their own lives. It's so inspiring to see how far we've come, and I'm sure she'll find the perfect partner to share her life with. I'm not sure if there's anything I can do to change the situation. I've been thinking a lot about how women were treated before the wedding, and it's really sad. For a long time, we lived in a very traditional and logical environment where the man was the breadwinner and the woman stayed home to take care of the kids. This was considered the ideal situation. But now women are starting to feel like they have to settle for a less than successful love life if they want to be seen as successful in general. It's hard to break free from these expectations. There are so many quotes that support this idea. It's like they say that you should stay married no matter what, even if your spouse betrays you, even if there's violence, even if you're not sexually attracted to each other, even if there's no respect in the relationship, as long as you're in a partnership. It's hard to be happy when you're not with the person you love. It's even harder when you're judged for not being successful in your love life. There are so many quotes that support this idea, and it's true. People often stay married even when they're being cheated on, even when there's violence, or even when they're not sexually attracted to their partner. It's a really difficult situation for women, especially for those who come from traditional families where parents get married and stay married their whole lives. They think that being a mother is the most important role, and that's what they should be emulating. We're also dealing with a recent historical movement where certain things still happen to women, but it's not even 100 years since we really started talking about freedom. I see that there's still a lot of suffering for women, especially those from traditional families where parents were married their whole lives and thought that the family unit was warm, and that the mother's role as a servant was something to be emulated. We're also angry because certain things still happen to women, but it's not even 100 years since we really started talking about freedom. We still live with a lot of remnants of colonization and slavery. We weren't going to live with remnants of an extremely macho society, right? We can be happy in any format, and that doesn't diminish who a woman is. Whether or not she is in an effective relationship is a momentary status. Life is fluid. Sometimes we're married, sometimes we're single, sometimes we're dating. I'm a woman, and I'll tell you, we still have a lot of traces of colonial and slave times. We weren't going to live with the remnants of a very macho society, and we weren't going to live with remnants of an extremely feminine society either. We can be happy in any format, and that doesn't diminish who we are. The fact that we're in an effective relationship is a momentary status. Life is full of ups and downs. Sometimes we're married, sometimes we're single, sometimes we're dating. Sometimes we really don't want anyone and everything is fine. I hear a lot of stories like that from widows. I see a lot of people who waited to be widowed to feel happy and free from a bad relationship because no one said they could separate before. As soon as it was okay to separate and live more happily without sharing life with their husband, they discovered it later. Music, Delvaux. I think emotional and financial dependence go hand in hand. Sometimes we really don't want anyone and everything is fine. I hear this story a lot. People wait to be widowed to feel happy and free from a bad relationship. No one said they could separate before. As soon as it was okay to separate and live more happily without sharing life with their husband. Sometimes they only discover it later after death. I think emotional and financial dependence go hand in hand. It's the emotional dependence that affects various areas of both the social sphere, where they are not encouraged to get out of relationships. It is very common for me to see my patients saying, "I told my friend that I wanted to separate, and she said, 'Ours is crazy. Your husband is okay. You won't have any better than this one. He goes back to the same speech. He doesn't hit you. He doesn't drink.'" I totally get it. It's all about emotional dependence. It's in all these different areas of our social lives, and it makes it really hard to even think about leaving a relationship. I always hear my patients saying the same thing, but then when I mentioned to my friend that I wanted to split up, she was like, "Oh, your husband's not that bad. He doesn't hit you, he doesn't drink, he's not unfaithful, and he's not a bad guy." And then she started going on about how there's no support for women to leave relationships. She said it's like a financial dependence and it's a huge roadblock. I think of so many marriages where people are stuck thinking that life is all about money. A lot of people think that just marrying someone with more money is the best thing ever, and they don't get that it's a huge responsibility. I really feel for you. It's hard to find support for women in relationships. It's a financial dependence that can really hold you back. I think of so many marriages where people thought that having more money was the key to a good life. But when you're tied down in a marriage or a love relationship, it's hard to think and face life on your own. Some people have financial independence but can't get out of weddings. Others have emotional independence but not financial independence. I see how we need to achieve some goals and have freedom to move on. It's important to recognize that financial independence is a key component of emotional and psychological well-being. While some individuals may prioritize financial independence over emotional autonomy, it's crucial to understand that both are essential for our overall happiness and sense of fulfillment. The conversation around not being in a romantic relationship is becoming increasingly prevalent. Many women feel that the journey towards feminism and the achievements we've made have placed a significant burden on them. They believe that men have become increasingly liberated from their traditional roles, and this shift is evident in society's perception of men. It's important to acknowledge the challenges faced by many women and recognize that they are often viewed as the ones responsible for their partner's actions. It's important to talk about how women are starting to feel about men in the modern age. A lot of women are saying that men used to have to work really hard to be successful and support their partners. But now, women are winning the guy who needs chivalry and effort to have sex with them. Sex is seen as something that men should want, but women don't need to put in as much effort. It's easier for men to be extraordinary and have sex with many women. Straight men were kind of forgiven for not putting in as much effort, and they were becoming less and less efficient. It's like they don't have to put in as much effort to be successful. They're less friendly, less romantic, and less interested in going on dates. They don't seem to understand the importance of respect and commitment in a relationship. It's almost as if they're proud of being in a relationship with a guy like that. Single heterosexual men are seen as more attractive to most women, who are often amazing. We feel like women have reached a level where they don't have to work as hard to be successful. Single women often feel like they have to settle for less than they deserve because men don't seem to be reaching for anything more. They're content with the basic essentials, and as they get older, they might even start to feel less attractive. This makes them more demanding because they've learned to value what they want. Meanwhile, men are just trying to do the bare minimum to keep things simple. It's like women are feeling more and more lonely, and they're starting to think that being single is the only option. Guys are doing just fine where they are. They don't feel the need to reach out and achieve because there are plenty of women around who are only looking for the basics. The older women are staying. I think they're getting less attractive. In this market, in this category of love, they're becoming more demanding because they know more than that. They like what they want. Then the guys don't want to be required to do the maximum if they can do the least. Women have been complaining so much that loneliness is a path, but then I go to another place where single women complain about loneliness as if it were the only option because there are no men. But then women also complain that the men they have are not amazing. What I see today is that it would be interesting for women to build a path understanding that being alone can be amazing and that right can be the best. Heterosexual pessimism would be women today drawing it all right. I understand that it can be challenging for single women to find love these days. It's so frustrating when you meet men who don't seem to appreciate you. It's like they don't want to be in a relationship, and it makes you feel like you're not good enough. It's hard to find a guy who's compatible with you, and it can really affect your self-esteem. Guys, it's hard when they're not very good and don't want to be treated badly. They're also put off by women who know their value and are confident. They have a lot to offer, but haven't found men who are a good fit, which has made it hard for them to find love. It's like when someone thinks they'll never find something interesting so they don't try. I think there's still a drama in women's love lives about not understanding that it's a choice. I think I'm a bit of a pessimist because I don't think there are any interesting, good men out there. But I think there are, and we just have to look for them and create them. I don't see today as happier or music. I think we all have our challenges finding happiness, no matter what our situation is. And, when it comes to romantic love, it's often the case that it starts out as something very intense. But when we look back after 30 years, the couples who have stayed together are not the ones who were in love at first. They're together because they chose to be and it works well for them. And if a couple doesn't work out, that's okay too. I think that being happy doesn't depend on love. If we can see that, we could be happy in any situation, even at weddings. Many marriages don't depend on love, even after 10 years. Some people get along, some don't. It's best to stay together and not separate, even if it's not perfect. Music.